told me stay strong and I asked what's that. I ain't never been nothing, that's why the kid rap. She told me stay up and I told her that's facts. I told her that's facts. I told her that's facts. That's facts. I ain't never let them break my spirit.
Hello everybody, my name's Spark and this is Sparky Speaks. We're going to get to some really dark, depressing corners of humanity. We're going to be covering Chloe's story from the grooming gang reports from Rupert Lowe, and I'm going to show you some human rights violations in the UK happening. So if you're one of those people who were not celebrating the 4th of July because of slavery, I want to let you know that you're lucky to live in the United States of America, because other places do not have the freedoms that we have here. So give me 1 second and I'm going to show you all of these horrible things that you're going to. So I just want you to watch this video without my commentary and tell me if you notice something off about the situation. Is there anything there that just didn't seem right to you? Did it seem like the police woman went and assaulted the wrong person? This boy is getting jumped. He's getting punched in the back of the head, and then she yells at him, "Don't!" He throws a punch at her because she is charging at him as he is getting up. Right? As he is getting up, of course he's gonna try to throw a punch. He's getting jumped, and then if you look back here, I'm gonna take the sound down. Watch this. Okay, so fight's happening. Obviously, this group is gonna assault this guy. Punched in the back of the head. Look at this. Look at the girl in the yellow vest. Move along. Having the attackers move along while the other lady cop is pretty violently handcuffing this man. But as you can see, she doesn't even have the ability to put his hands behind his back. How can people in the UK feel safe from anything if women like these are the ones around protecting everyone, considering they protect the attackers and they don't even have the strength to put the arms of a scrawny white boy behind his back? Here's one more little video. Just one more little video to ruin your day just a little bit more. Don't you love this? Isn't this great? You know, one thing I am grateful for is that we live in the United States. Oh my gosh, here's something. You see what happens to that water? They burn her tongue with it. Why? Why would you do that to a woman? To anybody? And you can hear kids in the background. Like what? And that's the culture that you want to bring in to our country en masse, right? Good idea. Good idea. Slow clap, Pierce Starmer. This is a 10-year-old girl. 10-year-old girl being married. Pakistan, 32-year-old Abdul Muhammad married 10-year-old Priya, now pregnant, 10 and pregnant, after paying her father $580. Father of the year sells his daughter, sells his little girl for $580. And this kind of stuff happens daily in Pakistan, daily in places like Afghanistan. Look at that. She's pregnant. She's 10. How? And this is the religion that we want to bring into America en masse. 8-year-old girls shouldn't be wives. They should be playing 10 years old and pregnant, man. I just, and in places like Afghanistan, this stuff happens constantly. And when you import this kind of culture to your culture en masse, what do you get? That little girl was pregnant and being married. Is this the kind of culture that you want inside of your culture? Because as far as I'm concerned, marrying and banging little girls is absolutely beyond evil. All right, so check it out. We're going to cover Jake Monroe's covering of Chloe's story in the grooming gang report from Rupert Lowe. So when I ask you what happens when you import this child marrying, child impregnating culture into your own country, what do you get? Well, Rupert Lowe's Grape Gang inquiry gets into that. And this is Jake Monroe
which I'm assuming is a pseudonym, was popular at school. Performed. Now we're going to get to the victim testimonies here, starting with Chloe. This is probably going to be the toughest part of this, okay? So embrace yourself. There are thousands of survivors who could have provided evidence to our inquiry team. Below is a summary of some of the testimony provided by our brave witnesses who spoke to the inquiry hearing. Some of the witnesses have to remain anonymous for their own safety. It begins with Chloe. Throughout her early childhood, Chloe, which I'm assuming is a pseudonym, was popular at school, performed well academically, and enjoyed an active social life. Although her parents separated when she was young, she describes her early upbringing as relatively stable.
And in these cases, most of the time, they target girls who are from broken homes, broken families, so they don't have any men looking after them, generally speaking.
Following the separation, full custody of Chloe and her older brother was awarded to their father despite his alcoholism. That's a rare occurrence. Her mother, on the other hand, was often absent from her life and became homeless following the separation. It was most likely because this woman was most likely suffering with mental health problems by the sounds of it. Chloe recalls a generally secure and supportive home environment under the care of her father. However, following his sudden death just before her 10th birthday, Jesus Christ, as if that wasn't enough tragedy for a 10-year-old, she moved in with her mother and her mother's new husband, a man she describes as a pedophile by whom she was sexually abused. Chloe's mother called her husband
The kinds of situations. Let's just say that I was very close to a girl whose father did the same kind of thing to her. It wasn't a stepfather, it was her own father. And the mother knew about it and did nothing to keep the family together. Absolutely evil.
Assaulting Chloe on many occasions, but did little to stop it. This is women. On one occasion, Chloe's mother caught her husband in the shower with Chloe, and instead of intervening, she closed the door and walked out. At this time, Chloe was 10 years old. The abuse soon escalated to rape. Chloe's stepfather supplied her with alcohol and cigarettes to keep her quiet. She began
caught her in the shower with her own daughter and didn't do anything about it. Mother of the Year award. That's why this kind of stuff happens, is when parents don't care about their own children.
Smoking cannabis. Around the same time, Chloe started truanting and spending time in the local town center with her friend and supervisor. She describes groups of Muslim men, primarily Pakistanis, aged 20 to over 50, showing them attention, including wolf whistling and buying them alcohol. Many were taxi drivers who would take the girls into their cars and drive them around the town. At this stage, there was no sexual abuse, and although men's behavior was clearly inappropriate, Chloe and her friend, then in the final year of primary school, enjoyed being treated like adults. Grooming soon intensified. The provisions of alcohol and takeaways was accompanied by emotional manipulation.
You know what bothers me about these situations is they're like, these girls dress like they want it, short skirts and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, obviously they don't want it because they have to be groomed first. Like that disgusting excuse that they use. I swear, if you do that kind of thing to a child, I swear you should just be executed for it by law, of course. You know, but it should be legal, a lawful execution of anyone who would harm a child like that.
And many of whom were related to one another, presenting themselves as sympathetic friends to Chloe. Yes, Chloe describes this process as them mapping out, are you vulnerable, are you a vulnerable person? Physical contact, including kissing and massages. Kisses and massages became increasingly common and is also becoming increasingly harder to read. Meanwhile, the abuse by her stepfather at home worsened and her mother was all but absent as a guardian. Fuck me. At this time, Chloe had an aunt and uncle who lived nearby, and she often sought refuge with them. She had spent holidays with them during her earlier childhood and felt that she could trust them. On one occasion, she visited them while truanting before returning home and spending the day there while her mother and stepfather were at work. To Chloe's surprise, her uncle arrived at her house unannounced an hour later, and she invited him inside. After a brief conversation, Chloe's uncle sexually assaulted her. Chloe resisted, and he relented. And
every single man in this little girl's life took advantage of her.
Left. She told her mother about the assault, and her mother reported it to the police. The police accused Chloe of lying. Me? And no further action was taken until this incident.
Oh my God. Yeah, see, and the police are useless in every single case. I showed you what the police in the UK do. They arrest the victims.
Since she had regarded her uncle as one of the best people in her life. Afterwards, there were no adults left that Chloe could confide in or seek support from. Increasingly isolated, she became more deeply involved with the groups of Muslim men she encountered in the town center. One evening, Chloe's friend suggested that they travel to a nearby town where one of the men had a hotel room. They were picked up by the man who was drunk and under the influence of drugs and taken to the hotel. When they arrived, hotel staff saw them, but they did not intervene. In the room, the girls were given a potent strain.
Children. These are children at 11, 12 years old. At no point did anyone intervene. Makes you sick. Makes me sick to my stomach. Like, okay, put yourself in the situation. You're the hotel staff, and these grown men are having random young girls, not even teenage, young girls transported to their house, you know, and they're clearly under the influence of drugs and alcohol. What do you do? Wouldn't you do something? Call the police? Something. But they do nothing. At every single level, these girls have been failed. And 250,000 girls, and that's a low number. That's a low number. That's a low shot count. And that's why you people who talk about the Epstein files and all that, the amount of victims of the Epstein cases, which a victim is a victim regardless, but it pales in comparison to 250,000 children.
Which left Chloe, then 11, absolutely smashed. Chloe's friend was taken into another room by a group of men, and Chloe was groped by the man who remained. Chloe resisted, and he hit her. The man did not attempt to sexually assault her again. Instead, threw the girls, both of whom were still intoxicated, out of the hotel and refused to drive them back to their hometown. They were forced to walk. It was around midnight. Chloe did not want to go back to her home as she feared her mother would beat her for being out late, so stayed with her friend. In the early hours,
just so you know, that's Alka-Seltzer. I'm not an alcoholic, okay?
Hours of the morning, Chloe was collected from her friend's house by the police after her mother reported her missing. Chloe lied to the police and her mother about where she had been.
Well, I am an alcoholic, but that was Alka-Seltzer, not vodka or gin.
His mother grounded her for a month, meaning she was stuck at home with her predatory stepfather, a period she describes as torture. After the month passed, Chloe arranged to see her friend, who boasted that she had a new boyfriend. Chloe left the house to meet her, and the girls were picked up by the boyfriend, who was in fact a 25-year-old Indian man. Chloe initially thought the man was nice, posher, then...
Of course, they always seem nice in the beginning, before they begin torturing. Just wait. Just wait. I'm warning you. Here's another warning. It doesn't get any better. It just gets worse.
The other man she had met in the town center, he took Chloe and her friend to a shop where he purchased a bottle of vodka before picking up one of his friends and taking the girls to a secluded location. During the journey, the men began pressuring the girls for sex. Chloe refused, stating that she was on her period, but the men replied that it did not matter. Night was falling when they arrived, and the boyfriend took Chloe's friend out of the car, leaving Chloe alone with the other man, who proceeded to rape her on the back seat. This incident took place in 2003. In 2022, Chloe took the two men to court, but neither were found guilty. From this moment, Chloe's life spiraled.
Of course, I mean, it might as well be like the courts that they have over in Pakistan and in Iran, where the girls are never, if girls try to take their rapist to court, generally they end up getting found guilty of something and get stoned to death. How close are we to that in the UK? Pretty close, I would say.
At 12 years old, she began drinking heavily, smoking large amounts of cannabis, and taking harder drugs, including ecstasy. Not really that hard, to be honest with you. Anything to block it out of her mind. She would drink before school just to get through the day. And none of the teachers noticed a drunk student. She and a friend would spend school hours in the town center walking around until somebody picked them up in a car. Somebody bought them alcohol and somebody gave them drugs. There were times when Chloe would be missing for up to 3 days, during which time she was passed between taxis, drugged, abused, and raped. In every case, the perpetrators were Muslims and primarily Pakistani. On one occasion, Chloe was abducted by an abuser who was driving drunk and taken to a graveyard. He gave Chloe, still 12 years old, whiskey before forcing himself on her and raping her. He withdrew before ejaculation and forced the empty whiskey bottle into Chloe's vagina.
These monsters are still at large.
It shattered. Chloe admitted herself to A&E, but no questions were asked about how she had...
Yeah, and not a single question asked by the doctors either. Not a single doctor reached out. I mean, all of these stories, these girls are in need of serious intervention, and nobody intervenes. Why? Lord, help these girls. Because this kind of stuff is still happening. Because in the current judicial situation in the UK, migrants and especially Muslims have free reign for the most part, and cops still avoid. You saw what happened to that white kid. That's what they do. They are told to avoid at all costs arresting somebody of color.
Sustained such an injury. She was examined, the glass was removed, and she was discharged. Chloe was questioned by police due to her absence on a number of occasions. Each time she was asked where she had...
But like how at 12 years old that happens to a 12-year-old girl and nobody intervenes? Excuse me. Oh, Lord. And nobody intervenes. It's absolutely demonic, absolutely devilish what these girls went through.
Who she had been with and what she had been doing. She replied that she had been having sex with adult males in cars. Rather than opening an investigation pursuing her abusers, the police dismissed Chloe as a prostitute at 12 years old. She was 12 years
dismissed as a prostitute at 12 years old.
At this time, and the police had literally just dismissed her as being nothing but a prostitute. They asked her whether she was consenting to the sexual activity, and despite Chloe telling them that she did not know the definition of the word consent, they reported that she had not, that she had been.
She did not know the definition of the word consent, and all authorities did nothing. I'm sorry. I know usually like I kind of keep a certain like level of lightness when I make episodes, but I want people to hear about this kind of stuff when it happens, because like the world needs to know. The world needs to know, and people need to be punished, and things don't change until people hear the truth. And the people that immediately just think racist when you hear that Muslims are doing it, take your head out of your rear end, please. And thank you.
Consenting, and that she was a 12-year-old prostitute. The police said this. The police said that the police found Chloe as well as other missing children in cars with the gang members on multiple occasions, but let the gang members go on without so much as questioning them. On one occasion, Chloe was in the town center and was identified as a missing child by a police officer. Yeah, so you're identified as a missing child if you are a minor and you go missing for a certain period of time. However, you can also become a legal prostitute, apparently, and the legal age of consent in the UK is 16, not 12. Chloe was in the town center and was identified as a missing child by a police officer who questioned where she had been. Chloe told this police officer about the full extent of the abuse, and the response of the police officer was that nothing could be done, and Chloe was let go. In response to her truancy and deteriorating behavior, the school regularly placed Chloe in isolation and compelled her to attend additional after-school classes every day. This did little to improve her emotional state, and she continued to spend time with her friend and her friend's boyfriend. This went on for a number of years. The boyfriend would simply supply the girls with alcohol and drugs, as well as introducing them to his friends, who were exclusively South Asian men. On one occasion, he took the girls to his place of work, a textiles factory where he raped Chloe. Following this incident, Chloe...
South Asian is their safe speak for Muslim, for Middle Eastern, because they don't like to point out Middle Eastern men, anything but point out Middle Eastern men, because Middle Eastern men have never, ever, at any point in history, ever violated anyone in any way, not even Muhammad. That's not what their religion is based on or anything. If you can't tell I'm being sarcastic, that's sarcasm that I'm doing right there.
Stopped spending time with a friend who, up until this point, had accompanied her throughout her exploitation. By this time, Chloe had become so accustomed to her lifestyle of spending time with the Muslim gangs that she continued to do so without her friend. On one occasion, following another late return home, her mother grounded her for 2 months. Fearing further abuse from her stepfather, Chloe walked to a nearby social services office while her mother was at work and reported the Chloe was interviewed by the social workers about the abuse, after which her mother and stepfather were arrested.
I mean, caught between a rock and a hard place. I mean, seriously, she's stuck at home where her mother's boyfriend will assault her, or she goes out with her friends where her friends are not her friends. They're grown men who assault her. And she kills all of her pain with drugs and alcohol, obviously, because I mean, how could a child handle that kind of stuff? It's too much. You know, the frontal lobe doesn't develop until you're like 25. My frontal lobe didn't develop until yesterday. You know, so these girls are children. It's just all I want in this world is for punishment to happen to these men and all of the men that do these sorts of things. I'm talking the boyfriend of her mom, who is obviously probably a white man, and all of the Muslim men that did it. It doesn't matter what religion or what race you come from. If you do bad things, you need to be punished for it. Am I crazy?
Question both denied that the abuse was taking place and were released without charges. So you can very much just go into a police station, lie, they believe it, and you leave. I can't believe this. It seems like the police know that there's a sex pest gang comprised of Indian men operating in this town.
And Pakistani. And yes, of course they know. They all just kept their heads down and let it happen. They all knew. There is no way that kind of stuff happens as often as it was happening and still continues to happen, to where everybody at every level doesn't know. It is the best kept secret in modern Western history, easily.
And they don't want to touch it. In fact, they've probably been instructed not to touch it.
Yes, they have. They have been instructed not to touch it by people like Keir Starmer before he became the prime minister. Allegedly. Before he became prime minister, he had sent letters out to a lot of men who had already been accused of being leaders of these grooming gangs. He sent letters warning them that authorities were to be, you know, looking into their affairs. You know, basically like, hey, stop raping so much because you might get caught. Seems like kind of a homie thing, right? Kind of something that you do to somebody that you have like a little bit of an agreement with, right? That's what I would say, huh? Yeah, selling out your country's little girls for something, you know, as a bounty for some sort of payment, maybe votes. I don't know.
These two, this rapist and the enabler, her mom and stepfather, were brought in for questioning. They lied, and the police went, oh, okay. They didn't want to investigate or pursue. Chloe made further appeals to social services. By the way, as someone who's actually been involved with social services recently, they are useless. Chloe made further appeals to social services and was eventually removed from the house and placed in foster care. She lived with a couple who cared for several other foster children, and though she found them snobby and judgmental, found some semblance of stability with them, but it did not last long. She was still living in the same town, so when she went into town center, as she often did, both alone and with the foster carers, the Muslim gangs would recognize and target her. She remained at the same school, and because she now lived further away, the foster carers paid for taxis to take her there. She would ask the taxi drivers to drop her near the school, and rather than attending, would walk to one of the neighborhoods where Muslim gangs spent their time. The gangs would take her into their taxis, ply her with drugs and alcohol, and sexually abuse her. This was all at the age of 12. She's now 13 here. Chloe disclosed to social services that she was being sexually abused by gangs of Muslim men. In response, social services did not intervene. Yep, I believe that. But rather talk to Chloe about contraception and sexual health. A 13-year-old. At least when you're being raped by these men, sweetie, make sure you wrap it up.
Yeah, right. These girls are being held captive practically. And like, even though they were not, a lot of them weren't full on being held captive, like you're being held mentally captive because these men know where you live. They know everything about you. Like you're exposed in every sense of the word, you know? So they're mentally held captive in a way that, you know, only abuse victims like that truly know what it feels like. And you owe it to these abuse victims to hear their stories, to give them the respect, at the very least, that these girls and these women who have been through these sorts of things, to listen to their stories and to pay them that respect, and quit downing them and calling them liars and racists. It's wrong.
Not intervene, but rather, acknowledging that she was being raped, advised her to use contraception and to be mindful of things like sexual health. One social worker started regularly taking Chloe to a sexual health clinic where she was diagnosed with chlamydia in her throat and vagina, gonorrhea, genital warts, and pelvic inflammatory disease. Neither the social workers nor the clinic staff questioned or worker started regularly taking Chloe to a sexual health clinic where she was diagnosed with chlamydia in her throat and vagina, gonorrhea, genital warts, and pelvic inflammatory disease. Neither
Evil.
The social workers nor the clinic staff questioned or reported this. Police were aware of Chloe's activities, but instead of targeting those responsible for her abuse, they routinely failed to question, let alone pursue further action. When Chloe was found in cars and houses with them, Chloe was soon moved to a different foster placement with a far more protective carer. On one occasion, a gang came to the foster home searching for Chloe and these rabid animals, and the carer fought them in the street to protect her. Around the time Chloe turned 14, a social worker approached her about her ongoing sexual exploitation. This was one of the first times.
One of the people at this, foster home fought them in the street to protect her. God bless that man. Seriously.
This had happened, and Chloe was.
I bet you realize that if he were caught fighting with them, they would arrest him for being racist. You realize that's been the state of things in the UK for a long time, right?
Relieved that her abuse was finally being addressed. However, rather than offering a solution, the social worker instead told Chloe that the producers of Emmerdale were looking for a young actress to play the victim of a child sexual exploitation. And
they're like, hey, you've been through a lot of abuse. Do you want to play a whore on TV? So disgusting.
Asked whether she would be interested in auditioning for the role given her experience. Are you serious? I can't believe this to be real. I want you to imagine, I want you to truly grasp how unbelievably sad it is that a girl lost her father. He died. He took good care of her and he died. That's already tragic enough. Your immediate next experience of life at the age of 10 is to be raped by your mom's new boyfriend or new husband. She's 10 years old. She's meant to be playing outside with her friends, going
like, finding hobbies, maybe Girl Scouts, baking cookies, painting, like going to the playground and going on the swings and talking about boys her age that she finds cute with her friends and just like, being a little girl and all of that was taken from her. Nobody gave a damn. Nobody. At every single level of this girl's life, she was failed. And that is a story that thousands and thousands of them. It's just,
the park, developing a little bit of independence, being guided into early adulthood, the young adulthood. She's meant to be assured every step of the way when her body starts to change. She's meant to be going on family vacations where she hangs out with her cousins, brothers and sisters, Saturday morning cartoons, cereal, that kind of thing. And all she's ever known is rape and betrayal.
Yeah, like guided and having someone care for her and tell her that she's special and that you're going, there's a lot of things changing with you, but but just know that we love you. Mom, mom loves you. We'll always be there for you. And don't ever let anybody tell you that you're not worth something. And, that kind of stuff. That's what every girl needs when they're growing up. And the fact that the officials in this country over there, especially, were not there to protect them, because when kids do not have good parents to protect them, the system is supposed to give enough of a crap to try to help them, to truly try to help them and not just allow them to fail.
Substance abuse and constant unending failure of every single adult in her life. The most impressionable, most vulnerable moment in a girl's life, in a kid's life, is when you transition from being a child into being a teenager. It's an incredibly volatile time in everyone's lives, where support is meant to be the primary thing, where love and understanding is meant to be the thing that's there for you to help guide you through this. And instead, everyone's just raping her. Following this exchange, Chloe, upset and angry and in a state of disbelief, as you would be, ran away from the foster home, and after being abducted by a Muslim gang, was missing for 6 months. Over this period, she was trafficked across the length and breadth of Britain. She was taken to house after house, raped and abused by guy after guy after guy. The man who abused her paid money to the gang, just treated her as little more than a commodity. She was reported missing and her photograph was shown on TV. Her abusers remarked on this, "You're that girl off the TV that's missing." But her whereabouts were never reported to the police. Chloe describes a cycle of grooming, rape, and drug and alcohol abuse. This went on until eventually.
And the police never cared enough to look into it. And this is how it's been like throughout all of it. And it makes you think, like, after when you read through this file, it makes you think that it was a concerted effort of the whole system to allow this kind of abuse to happen to the most vulnerable of society, which is little girls.
Eventually, she was located by the police. When the police found her, she was in a car with a South Asian Muslim man. That man was let go without charge. She was returned to her mother's house. Chloe's relationship with her mother had completely broken down by this point, so she continued to run away, and her psychological state deteriorated further. Following another period of grooming and sexual exploitation by a Muslim gang, Chloe was taken into police custody and transported to a secure unit at Children's Home. She describes the home as being like a prison. Every aspect of her life was controlled and surveilled, and she was routinely subjected to bodily examinations, including full cavity searches. Chloe found the experience highly traumatic. She remained there for 9 months, by which time she was almost 15. Social services determined that she was well enough to be released, and she was placed in foster care not far from where she had been living before. Chloe describes the new carers as a positive and encouraging presence in her life, and in spite of her proximity to the sites of her abuse and exploitation, Chloe found stability and security living with them. She enrolled in a full-time hairdressing and beauty course at a nearby college. The next 2 years, Chloe describes her life as fantastic. As Chloe approached her 18th birthday, social services notified her that the foster care would soon end. They identified a house for her, and after parting ways with her carer, she moved in and got a retail job to support herself. Despite having little experience taking care of herself, Chloe's life remained generally stable through this period. Eventually, Chloe re-established contact with the friend whom she had been abused with as a young child. She invited her over to her house. When she arrived, she was accompanied by a group of Muslim men, all of whom remembered Chloe from past. Immediately, Chloe's life was thrown back into chaos. The men refused to leave, and in Chloe's words, it was no longer my quiet little.
They took her house from her and just shacked up in there. The pain that this little girl went through. Just around her 18th birthday, too. She's so young.
It was no longer my quiet little house. It was their house. They smashed windows, kicked in doors, left the house an absolute wreck, and sexually abused Chloe. One of the men, a previous abuser, pinned her down, pulled her trousers down, and sat on her face, orally raping her on her own sofa as the rest of the gang watched. Chloe returned to drugs and alcohol to cope. Though she was still working in retail, her ability to work was rapidly declining. During one shift, one of her colleagues, someone she was friends with, jokingly pinched her bottom. Chloe, traumatized by the year's abuse, punched him in the face in the middle of the shop. She was brought before management, tried to argue her case.
Which is understandable. You know what I mean?
Further,
okay, so she... someone playfully pinches her butt and she cracks him in the face because she's used to years of being traumatized and abused. He didn't know that, but you also don't pinch. You don't touch people like that. The guy had it coming because you don't touch people like that. That's wrong. Doesn't matter what context.
Still occupying her house, and with nowhere else to go and no ability to remove them, she remained there with them. They routinely drugged, used, and raped her, including with objects, including soft drink cans, keys, and a baseball bat. Before long, they started to pay her bills to consolidate their presence in her home. On a number of occasions, they brought young children. Chloe recalls a number of occasions when boys under the age of 18 from Muslim communities, from the Muslim community, were pressured and bullied by their older friends and relatives into raping her. Chloe was forced to commit crimes, including insurance fraud and the holding of drugs. On one occasion,
took a quick break there, and I'm back now for the tournament.
Arrived, Chloe was threatened with arrest rather than the gang members as the property was registered in her name. One evening, an associate of the gang from a neighboring town arrived at the house.
Police get involved, and they threaten Chloe with arrest instead of the gang members for being a prostitute. That's just the world.
House, a notorious sex trafficker. He soon began taking Chloe to bars and nightclubs in the surrounding area. There, he would spike her with heroin before handing her over to men who sexually assaulted and raped her. Chloe became addicted to opiates, as you would if you were exposed to heroin, and her health deteriorated rapidly. She became anorexic, weighing just 5 stone at the age of 18. Hell, the use of heroin was a method of control by the gang as it left her with no ability to defend herself physically. Her daily existence became a relentless cycle.
Heroin is a drug that they use to control women in prostitution a lot. It's just one of the most wicked things you can do, getting somebody addicted to heroin so you can abuse them. It's just, honestly, all of these men deserve to burn in hell. No, it's like, as a Christian, I still feel like no amount of repentance can ever save you from doing such evil.
Of rape, exploitation, and violence. Eventually, a social worker visited Chloe and was shocked by both her appearance and the conditions in which she was living. Concerned for her welfare, she took Chloe to an addiction clinic where tests revealed an extremely high concentration of opiates in her system. Chloe was prescribed medication to manage her opioid dependency and gradually weaned herself off the drugs. Around this time, Chloe reconnected with a childhood friend, and their friendship soon developed into a romantic relationship. Her boyfriend became aware of the ongoing abuse, and with the help of his father, paid off Chloe's remaining rent and moved her out of her squalid house. Chloe moved in with him, after which she got another job in retail. For a short period, Chloe's life was relatively stable, but due to her unresolved trauma, she soon returned to drinking heavily, smoking cannabis, and gambling. Her workplace was close to her first foster home, and before long, she came back into contact with members of the gang that had abused her at that.
Oh no. I forgot a lot of this stuff.
Time. The cycle of grooming, exploitation, and abuse soon resumed. Her relationship with her boyfriend broke down, and out of desperation, she reestablished contact with her mother, who had left her predatory husband, and soon moved back in with her. One night, Chloe was out with members of the gang and drinking heavily. Upon her return to her mother's house, her mother reported her to the police. The police arrested Chloe while she was changing into her pajamas. She was taken to the police station drunk and half naked. She was kept in a cell until 2 a.m. the following morning.
Okay, so when people, I'm not going to genderize it. When people have been abused so much and then they're left, they break up, whatever, they go back to what they're used to. It doesn't matter if it's good or if it made them feel good or whatever. They go back to what they're used to. That's why she ended up back with the gang, because she broke up with her boyfriend, which is understandable. When you have unresolved issues and you break up with someone, she ended up reconnecting with her abusers, because it's cyclical, unless you find a way to truly break that cycle, be it with religion or the 12 steps or something, a lot of times you're bound to re-go the cycle over and over and over, sadly.
At which point she was released. They did not provide her with any clothes or transportation back to her mother's house. She tried to contact her ex-boyfriend, but he did not respond. Chloe, then 19, was left stranded, and she wandered around the neighborhood for several hours before encountering, you guessed it, a gang member who had previously abused her. Cold and desperate, she got into his car, and for the following weeks was trafficked across the country. Eventually, Chloe identified a new house to move into. Despite their dysfunctional relationship, her mother agreed to sign the rental agreement as Chloe's guarantor. As Chloe, then without income, knew she would not be able to afford the rent. After she moved in, she became aware of the fact that she was the only white British person in her neighborhood. Every other resident was South Asian. As a result, the gangs discovered where she was living and once again treated her house as if it was their own. The cycle of abuse continued, and Chloe's emotional state deteriorated significantly. Chloe was taken to hospital after a suicide attempt, and while there, she discovered that she was pregnant. The father of the child, a Pakistani Muslim illegal migrant, moved into Chloe's home. Chloe was subsequently coerced into converting to Islam and forced into marriage, both to legitimize the pregnancy in the eyes of her abuser and to assist him in securing a visa. Piece of shit. Chloe's behavior.
This kind of stuff still happens day to day in places like the UK, you know, Scotland, Ireland. This stuff still happens. This isn't a one-off because things haven't been rapidly changed yet.
Became tightly controlled. She was forced to wear a hijab. She was prohibited from looking out the windows of her home, and if she misbehaved in the eyes of her husband, he would beat her black and blue. Something that happened every day. Chloe's child was born with multiple health problems, including a defective kidney due to the deteriorated condition of Chloe's womb as a result of the sexual abuse. Nevertheless, becoming a mother gave Chloe a renewed determination to get her life back on track. She reported the father of her child to the police after he assaulted the child, and he was removed from the property. She stopped taking drugs. She was focused, and for the first time, the gangs left her alone to raise a Pakistani kid, not even a British kid, a Pakistani kid. One evening, she went out with a friend who lived across the road. Chloe, now a mother, did not drink heavily, but her friend became heavily intoxicated. A group of Asian men started speaking to them, offered to take Chloe and her friend home. Chloe was suspicious of them, but
see, they say Asian, but it's Middle Eastern. It's not like, don't think like Japanese or like Koreans, you know. Don't think Jackie Chan and Jet Li, you know.
Of her friend agreed. Instead of taking them home, however, they were taken to a hotel. Chloe was not drunk, protested, and encouraged her friend, who was paralytic, which is a British term, to leave with her. Chloe warned her friend about what she suspected was going to happen, but her friend refused to leave. Chloe, thinking of her daughter and seeking to protect herself, reluctantly left without her. The following day, Chloe's friend told Chloe that she'd been raped by the man. This incident represented a turning point in Chloe's life. She decided that she needed to leave her hometown for good and get as far away from these Asian men as possible. By chance, she reconnected on Facebook with a man she had known in her early childhood, an old colleague of her mother who she describes as one of the only adult men in my life who never harmed me or treated me badly. She told him about everything she had been through and her desire to leave. He lived in Scotland, and she was invited to visit him for the weekend. She did. After returning home, she sought support from Women's Aid, who managed to secure her property in Scotland. With nothing but her daughter and a small bag, she left her hometown, leaving a lifetime of abuse and exploitation behind, and moved to Scotland, where she resides to this day. Chloe personally knows at least 20 other girls from her area who were predated on by the Muslim gangs who abused her. The pattern was always the same: grooming, drugging, trafficking, abuse, and rape. Furthermore, Chloe described being taken into mosques where imams would describe non-Muslims as infidels and preach that white women who dressed inappropriately were free game. That's every mosque, not just the one she went to. That's all of them. This is what they think of you. Chloe believes that the local police, social services, NHS, and government were all fully aware of what was happening, including.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that's preached in mosques everywhere you go. Like, especially the white Christian women are to be done with whatever you please. They're toys, you know, because they're sinners in the eyes of Islam.
The racialized nature of the crimes, but they did not intervene for two reasons: because they could not be bothered with the paperwork, and because they did not want to be seen as racist. Chloe blames these bodies and their nature.
Because they didn't want to be seen as racist, and they're too lazy to do the paperwork. Perfect.
Push for diversity for her abuse. Chloe says that if I can save just even one more child, girl or boy, from going through any of this, then I've done my job. Inquiry panelist, do you know how many men abused you over that period? If you had to guess. Chloe, hundreds and hundreds. Now tomorrow we're going to cover Fiona. I know.
So much appreciation to Jake Monroe. He does a really good job. He's awesome. You should follow him at Jake Monroe. But this has been Sparky Speaks, and I just appreciate y'all, everyone who's subscribed, everyone who's watched, you know, all of the tens of people that watch my show. You people are awesome. God bless you. And just, I appreciate you. Thank you so much.